at some point, the cricket administrators in the U.S. can do it with some athletes. And like I said, it doesn't have to be limited to baseball, softball. There's, Erica Rendler, you've dealt with the U.S. women's team. Her primary sport was field hockey. She was not a softball player. She did play softball, but that wasn't her primary sport. Her primary sport collegiately was field hockey. And you see the likes of Jonty Rhodes being a field hockey player. And I think Brendan McCullum may have played some field hockey as well. And you see this type of shots that they played, that some of it comes from field hockey. And Geetika Kadali was a tennis player for I don't know how many years before she latched on to cricket. So you can see in the athletic skills that some of these girls have developed who are up and coming, the teenagers in particular. One of the things that stood out to me, Bert, I'm going on a rant here, but in Mexico, you were there in Mexico. See, the teenagers who were all the American born and raised teenage girls in the warm-ups one day, they were throwing your KU football. They were throwing the American football better than I've seen the men's players on the men's national team throw a football. So you see the athletic skills that are developed in the kids who are growing up, going to the high school system and being part of the athletic facilities in the athletic environment in America. And the women's team is proof that you recruit young athletes and you get them into cricket and they choose cricket over other sports, but they've been exposed to and played other sports. You've got a gold mine of athletic talent in this country that you can seize on.
Well, this is what I love about the US. We'd always bag out the US in Australia, but it's a really good system for development. So going through high school or junior college, there is a strength and conditioning like pathway, and they play all these sports. So and this is the fundamental rule with any kind of development. The best athletes are the ones who played multiple sports. So there's this transference of, they could have been a javelin thrower and then they go, I'm going to start learning fast bowling. They've got really good mechanics, and then they just got to learn to bowl more balls and hit the spot on the wicket, or whatever sports. There's transference into. So that's why a lot of the kids in the US, they're just tunnel vision and they're all 10 years old doing cricket every day.
I can't stand that. I run across it. I used to run across. Everybody runs across it. And when I've done the limited junior coaching that I have, and I asked some of the parents, I've dealt with, I do a lot of fielding practice and fielding training with kids in the 10 to 13-year-old range, 14-year-old range. And I asked them, what else do you do during the week when you're not training cricket? And they say, oh, that's all I care about is cricket. Yeah. All I want to do is cricket. I say, no, please play other sports. You have to play other sports. You cannot just play cricket. And it shows you can tell the kids who are playing other sports, like a Rahul Jarawala, who plays baseball, has played varsity baseball in California for his school team. Stephen Taylor grew up playing other sports. He played basketball, he played football. But of the recent kids, Rahul Jarawala is a great example of that. And Geetika, they played other sports, and the athleticism that they demonstrate, you can pick it out immediately. And I try to tell the parents, please, Geetika's parents, don't let her stop playing tennis. If she wants to keep playing tennis, encourage her to keep playing tennis as well as cricket, because there are so many skills. Players
I was 18 when so I'd play rugby league and cricket, but then in amongst all that, I'd play touch football, I'd play sport at school, I'd ride my bike every day, and to ride to and from cricket practice, because my dad wouldn't drive me. So I'd ride to and from practice and ride to the gym. So I was doing a lot, but I have these kids that come to my garage gym and they're basically doing cricket 12 months of the year. And so it was the off season. I had them in the gym and I was like, so what do you do? What do you guys do? And they're like, well, we'd go on to practice today. And so every day they're hitting cricket balls or bowling. And I'm like, guys, you need to actually stop. You need to take some time out and just refresh, because you got literally 8 months of a season to come. And they're like, well, it's not actually a season. There's two parts to the season. There's this winter season and then the summer season. I'm like, so when do you have the time off? I'm like, well, we don't. It just bewildered. I didn't know that. So I'm learning a lot just by living here, that the ecosystem set up in a way that you can play as much cricket as you want, but also it's setting up, I feel like it's setting up a lot of the kids for failure, in the sense that there's no off season to it. So they don't go and play another sport. They're just year-round cricket, and they're not actually going away from cricket and then getting the urge. I'm excited for cricket season and I'm really motivated and excited, but it's the same. It's the same 12 months of the year.
Well,
cycle.
It's not just the physical transference skills. You use the word transference that you develop from, playing other sports. And like you said, the best athletes in America and in the world, in a lot of places, they're multi-sport athletes. I mean, it's extremely common for the people who don't listen or watch regularly, but all the best athletes who are highly recruited for the NFL or, college football scholarships, whatever, they'll play college football in the fall, basketball in the winter, and then baseball or lacrosse in the spring. Kyler Murray with the Arizona Cardinals. Kyler Murray was the first overall draft pick in the NFL, but he was also, I think, the 6th overall draft pick in the Major League Baseball draft for the Oakland Athletics. He was a phenomenal baseball player as an outfielder, had incredible base running speed at Oklahoma. And the Athletics were like devastated when he decided that he wanted to go back to Oklahoma to try and keep playing football. And Joe Mauer is another great example. Joe Mauer was the first overall draft pick for the Minnesota Twins about 15, 20 years ago. He was a high school catcher drafted out of high school, but he was also an All-American high school. He was the top. Not only was he the top high school baseball recruit in the country, he was also the top high school quarterback recruit in the country. Marion Jones, the gold medal track athlete from America, the sprinter, before she was disgraced and caught up in the steroid scandal. She went to North Carolina, and she was on the national championship team at North Carolina as a starting point guard before she went off to having a track career.
There's a few of the guys in the system that they're doing track, and I love it.
Yeah.
So there's two different kind of groups. The ones that in our system that they go to school and they're part of a track program. There's athletic development incorporated into their program. So there is a gym and kind of running. So I'm like, do it. You're good. I trust it. But then there's the ones who are they're not doing anything like that at school. And then they've got to follow the program, but they've got to be self-motivated to follow it. So we're quite fortunate. The ones who are doing really well in all of our testing, they're the ones who are doing like track and field, or they're caught up in some kind of sport at high school. And they're, by a product of the system, they're naturally developing all their athletic qualities just by participating in their sport. So if we had most of our players like do a track and field program at high school, we're good. We're ticking the boxes of like speed, conditioning, power. If they're not doing that, then it's like we need them to be really motivated to get to the gym, to get to a field and run.
But it's not just that. I mean, the other aspect, you talked about transference and all these athletic skills you develop from other sports. But for me, I would argue just as important, if not more important, is the social skills you develop by playing team sports in particular and some of these other sports, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, because not just on the field during the course of play, but in the training aspects of cricket is an intensely individualistic sport. Whether you're bowling or batting, somebody who's in the net's batting for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, they're just batting alone. There's no interaction with a teammate when you're batting.
Funny you say that.
Yeah.
I've said this a lot, that I've been more shaped and molded by playing rugby league than I have with cricket. So cricket, it's a funny sport. It's all about you. Here's the ball, Burt, run in and bowl as quick as you can. And then I create the tone. So I've always felt my, personality as a bowler was shaped by rugby league, aggressive contact. Your mates are always around you. I'm only as good as the person next to me. And if he can't tackle next to me, then, so it's I was like a bit like a bunch of like warriors kind of thing. And we're all in it together and fighting. And I love that mindset. And in cricket, I tried to do the same thing when I was bowling. Like I wanted to set the tone for my teammates. And if something happened with my teammate, I'd, try and set the tone with the ball or be aggressive. And that only came from playing rugby league. But if I had no other experience in other sport, I'd be shaped by cricket. And unless you've got a good bunch of senior players shaping and molding you who are mentors, setting the tone, it can be really bad. Like I've played a couple of games here in Dallas, and it's the worst cricket. Like it's just horrible cricket. There's no standards. And so as a youth kid, when I was coming up in Australia, it was, you don't step out of line. There was this culture in place of standards and behavior. And here it's very much a culture of like, I just turn up and play cricket and I leave. There's nothing about a club. I'm a part of a club that's bigger than myself. And I'm just a part of this train at the moment. I'm about to step off, but we're keeping this train moving forward and the legacy of it. Like I felt that when I played cricket in Australia. Here it's like, I go to cricket on a Saturday and leave. And I'm not caring about the young 15-year-old who I need to mentor and develop so he can then open a bowling for our club one day. So there's a lot of things that are missing from, which kind of sucks whenever I have these conversations, because I'm shaped and molded by my experiences in Australia. But then everyone who's only ever played cricket in America, they don't know any different. So they're like, well, this is cricket. And it's like, well, it's not. And it's very different to how I've experienced cricket and played cricket and how I was shaped and molded. And I wish a lot of the kids here would experience a summer in England and Australia, what a club system looks like. I'll go on a bit of a tangent here. I actually wish there was a grading system where players every weekend were actually getting graded on their skills. And if you're not up to par, you go back to second grade. And if you're not good enough for second grade, you go down to third grade. And so you're constantly being assessed and judged. So then by the time you actually get into the national team, you're used to that process week in, week out. You got to go to club practice twice a week. You got to be a good person. You just can't be a poor person and play cricket every weekend. And there's no consequences for that. Like in Australia, if you're a poor person and you're not coming to training, you're not playing cricket.
You say poor person. I think the more accurate term in Australia is if you're a shit bloke. Shit bloke.
That is part of one of the things on no shit bloke rules. Like you're not going to fit in. So it's a funny, like it hurts. Like, so that's how I've been shaped and molded, whether that's a good or bad thing. But I've got to like adjust my thinking at times as well in the US, just because it's not the same. There's not a Dallas Premier League Cricket Association. There's 2 leagues and they compete against each other. And then anyone can, then if I don't like those 2 leagues, I'll go start my own league.
Yep.
So it's very political, but how do you fix it? I don't know. But because I'm a strength and conditioning coach, and all I care about is development. How do we develop young kids to be elite level cricketers through this system? So we've still got a ways to go.